Hello again, welcome back. Here we are to continue our discussion of web components. In the last video, we created two, components that are simple, but they're starting to grow in complexity. We have one component that is kind of a blink component where the text fades in and out, and we have another component that acts as a ticker tape. So the characters kind of cycle beginning to end, right? And with these two components, we explored the idea of life cycle methods. So our class here, the ticker tape class, backs up the ticker tape tag right here, right? And this class adds functionality to text that we put in that tag, right? And what we've done is we've given that class two methods, right? So one of the methods is called connected callback, and the other one is disconnected callback. These are the lifecycle methods. So connected callback is the method that is called on when a component is added to the DOM. And disconnected callback is called on when a component is removed from the DOM. And why is this important? Well, this component uses a timer, and if we connected it to the DOM and it created a timer, then if we connect it again to the DOM, it would create a second timer, and that could be kind of weird, right? We could have the timer running twice. It would appear that the letters were moving kind of randomly or twice as fast as they should. Plus, every timer takes up some resources, computing resources, right? And so that makes the rest of our application less efficient because we're giving some, work to this timer, right? Second, if the element here is removed from the DOM, we'll want to stop the timer, right? We'll need to stop it because otherwise it would be running in the background and not doing anything, right? Or it would be doing something, but not that something would not be visible, really, right? So that would be a problem. It would be, again, wasting computer resources, right? So we want to make sure we clean up after ourselves, right? So that's connected callback and disconnected callback. Let's do a quick illustration just to see how this works. So you can see this is my timer code right here. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to add a console log to the connected callback here and say, added, let's say ticker tape added to DOM, exclamation points, right? And then I'm going to do another one down here, disconnected callback, right? And I'll say console log, and I'll say, ticker tape removed from DOM, exclamation points, right? It doesn't work unless you put the exclamation points in. That's a joke. So, okay, sorry. So there we go. I've got these things added in here, and now I'm going to go back. I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to go back to my code here and refresh the page. And you can see I get the ticker tape added to DOM. So when the page loads up, it sees that we've created a ticker tape. It calls the connected callback, and it prints this message to the DOM, right? And we could write some code to remove an element from the DOM, and if we did, then it would call this function right here. As another test right here, we can also go to the Elements tab, and if I just click on the ticker tape here, let me actually close this thing. Close that. I want to close this thing. Let me see here. Maybe I can just make it a little wider. There we go. Actually, there's the button. So if I select the ticker tape right here, you can see I've got the ticker tape tag, and if I select it and hit delete on the keyboard, that will remove it. So when I do that, if I go to the console, you can see that it says ticker tape removed from DOM. So indeed, this one happened right here, and then it should have also stopped our timer, right? And so we could actually put a message in here and test it. You can try that on your own. Put a message in here. Actually, I'll just do it, right? Let's do console log, and we'll say, tick, right? And now you can see every 2 seconds I get a tick, right? So there's 2, 3, 4. If I go to the elements and then I remove the ticker tape, and then I go to console log, you can see the ticking has stopped, right? Ticker tape removed from DOM, and the ticks have discontinued, right? So anyway, that's the lifecycle methods, right? So that kind of follows that up with a little bit of experimentation to see how they work. You should try all of these experiments for yourself. Do them on your own also. Don't just watch me do them, right? And then, you try some other things too. You can change the message. You could put something else in here. I don't know what, right? But try it for yourself to see how they work, right? This is science, right? So, we got to experiment. So I'm going to get rid of those console log messages. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at attributes. So every tag has attributes. And you saw that, when we use the input tag and we said type equals, text, or we said type equals, checkbox or whatever, then, it would change the nature of the input, right? And also, if you create an input and it's type text and you put a value here, when you set the value, it's what is displayed in the input. I'm actually going to give this input, the border here is so light you can't see it. I'm going to add a style up here and say input border is 1 pixel solid, and then let's give it some padding of 1, about half a rem. There we go, right? So now I can see the input there, right? So watch what happens, if I set the value here, if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I set the value, you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4 appears in the input field, right? You can still type in there. If I was to go to the elements here, right, and look in the body element here and find my input, and you can see the value says 1, 2, 3, 4. If I type in 4, 4, 4, and I guess it doesn't let you do it here, but essentially if you were to change this with JavaScript, it would also change the value that you see in the field, right? If I refresh, it'll show that 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. So I guess this just uses that as the default, right? But you can see that the point here is that when you set an attribute, the internal mechanism of this tag understands what to do with that attribute, right? And we can do the same thing with our web components. So this is where our web components can start to become more flexible, right? And give them more possibilities, right? So we can add attributes to our tags, our custom tags that we create, and the code that we write to back up those tags can make use of the attributes that we're using, okay? Right? So the attributes do a couple things for us. One, they let us configure the element. So for example, here the blink tag always blinks at 2 seconds, but we could add a time property here, right? And we could set the time, like 2 seconds or whatever you want to set there, right? And the same thing with the ticker tape. Maybe I could put a time on here and we could set the time between ticks, right? So we'll call it 2. I'm going to do this in milliseconds, so we'll do 2000, right? So we could do something like this. We could add some other attributes to do other things, right? We could make a forward or reverse to make this, tick one to the left or to the right, and you can imagine other ideas, right? Okay, so we could add attributes there. The other thing is the attributes will let our tags, right, the custom elements that we create, it lets them communicate and connect with the tags around them, right, and the code in the outer app, right? So code outside our app could set the time for us, right? So we could write JavaScript that set this attribute, and that would change the nature of the ticking, right? Okay, or the blinking, okay? So attributes, right? Attributes are values. We always put a name, equals, and the quotation marks. And the value goes in the quotation marks, right? This value is recognized by the custom element, okay? So how does that work? I'm going to go back to the lesson page, and after the section on lifecycle methods, there's a section here called handling attributes, right? And this shows you how to work with attributes. So, an attribute would look like this. You might have time, min, and max. Right inside the code that's backing up your custom element, you would use the attribute changed callback. Okay, so this is another method that you would add to your to your class. And then this method gets the name of the attribute, the old value, and the new value. Okay, so the old value was what the value was before you changed it. Okay, and then you are going to handle the attribute change in here and run any code that you need to run. Okay, so this handles changes to an attribute. So we get attribute changed callback, right? And to use this, we might copy this, right? I might copy it and I would put it inside my class here, right? So I have the constructor, I have the connected callback, disconnected callback, and the ending of the class there. Maybe I'll put it here right below the constructor, okay? So we would use it this way. And we do some code here, some code here. And then there's one other piece to this, right? So name of observed attributes, right? So we need this static get observed attributes. So the thing is, you might have attributes on your custom element that are not observed. So for example, like, class name, maybe our, custom code doesn't need to look at the class attribute, or if you have the ID attribute here. So there's a lot of attributes that you may not work with, right? So like these two we're probably not going to work with, but we do want to look at value, right? Same over here with time. If you wanted to give your blink text an ID or a class name, you could add these, but maybe the code that we've written to back this up does not need to look at these two attributes when they change or when they're added, right? Or edited, right? So what we do is we use this, pardon me, we use this static get observed attributes, right? And this returns an array of the names that you're observing for, right? So this lists only the attributes that you're concerned with. So when you list time, min, and max here, those are the only attributes that will trigger an attribute changed callback. Okay, so ID, class, and value and type would not trigger attribute change callback because they are not on the list here, at least for this blink text component that we've written. Okay, so whenever we use attribute change callback, we also use the static get observed attribute. So I'm going to copy this and I'll paste it over here with my other code, right? Okay, so here's a challenge for you, right? Why don't you test this out first, right? So let's do this. Let's say if we get, I'm going to open up my web component here and get the console there. And so we can see the console here. And what I want to do is I'm going to look for the time. Let's actually get rid of min and max. Let's just do time for now. And then, because I'm just going to add a time attribute to set the time for the ticker tape, right? And what I want to do is I want to see if the time property shows up and if it changes. So I'm going to add an if statement here because I might get another attribute. Really, I'll only get time because that's the only one I have listed here. But if I have more than one, then I'll want to do something different for each one. So I'm going to say, hey, if the name equals time, then we're going to do the code here. Else, if the name is something else, then we can do some other code. So maybe if this was like min or whatever, right? Okay, I'm going to leave that off for now, right? But that's my goal in the future is I'm going to check the name, right, against the names of the attributes that I have listed here, right? Okay, and if you want, you can do something with the old value and the new value, right? So what I want to do is I want to just print the old value and print the new value so we can see what they are, right? So I'm going to say console.log, and we'll say name. Let's do plus changed. And then we'll say console.log, and then we'll say old value. And then we'll do the new value, right? There, so we'll see what they are. So you can see here it said the old value was, it said time was changed, old value was null, new value is 2000. So this happened when the page initialized, right? So if I refresh, I get this, and it's kind of telling me that, you know, when the web component loads up, we're going to call attribute changed callback. Let's try another example. So this says 2000, and it says 2000 because I actually included time of 2000 up here, right? Let's try changing it in the DOM here. So what if I go to ticker tape and I say, let's change the time attribute here to 9999 and then save it. And when I go to the console, you can see the time was changed. The old value was 2000 and the new value is 99999, right? So we can see that that's our mechanism is working. You know, if you are to go in here and change the values equal to 1, then we're going to get a time changed, the old value, and the new value. Okay? So here's my challenge for you. Okay? I want you to add a time attribute to the ticker tape and a time attribute to the blink text. And then I want you to implement static get observed attributes and watch for the time, and then implement attribute changed callback and set the time based on the value here, okay? And what you're going to need to do in the case of this, of the code we have here with the timer, is you'll need to clear the interval and then start a new timer, okay? So, so that's what you need to do here. You need to stop the timer. Let's actually put that here. I'll put that in here. Stop the timer, right? We'll put in here, you know, clear interval, right? And then start a new timer with the new time, okay? So the time was changed, so now we want to change the speed, right? And you'll do the same thing on the blink text down here. So blink text uses the timer again. You'll need to add the static get observed attributes and the attribute changed callback here also, okay? So good luck on that challenge, and then I'll see you in the next video and we can compare our solutions, okay? And as always, thanks for watching.